Do you remember Fantasia?
Yes.
We're going to see a little bit of Fantasia, just so you can see how a story works. I'm going to talk a little bit about it as we play it. What was it, about mid-1940s, I think they did this when they did the original movie. The sorcerer. And think, who's the antagonist and who's the protagonist? At this point, it looks like poor Mickey. You know, what a bum deal. He's got to be the protagonist, right? And you take a look at the wizard. He's kind of like dominant, and he's like, he starts doing his like deals here. He like makes this butterfly, and like, he looks kind of angry, doesn't he? He's powerful. And so you kind of get the impression as you watch the story is that, okay, Mickey's probably oppressed. The sorcerer it doesn't look like he's particularly kind. You know, poor Mickey is a small guy. He's got these big buckets of water that he's just working himself nose to the grindstone. And so, I guess the sorcerer, he's kind of in a mode where, okay, his job says he's tired, he's going to go to sleep. Poor Mickey's still got to keep working. He's got a lot of work to do. But alas, what do we see? The sorcerer comes to action, right? What if he wears the hat? And sure enough, he puts it on. And a lot of you have seen this. You remember what happens in the story now, right? Hey, I can use the power too. We have authority on one side, responsibility, and he thought, I want to have the power. I want to have the authority. You notice this is just the opposite of Pan's Labyrinth? Pan's Labyrinth, what happened? Is we said the society was oppressing. In this case, Mickey is going to start using the power himself, and so he's going to take the responsibility. So it's an opposite message in this, aren't we? Of course, bad things happen, don't they? Anyone remember what happens? He's going to take a nap here in a little bit, isn't he? And when he takes a nap, what happens?
Water.
The water keeps on going, doesn't it? I won't go through the whole thing in the interest of time, but he's going to have a dream, and he's going to be dreaming that he's got all this power. He's at the top, and he's controlling all this lightning and things, and he's dreaming about water. You ever have dreams that you're kind of like, you think maybe something's happened, your subconscious is doing it? Here he is, he's getting ready to go to sleep, and the water is going to start coming, and coming, and coming. And next thing you know, he's going to wake up and there's going to be water everywhere. I won't go through the rest of it, but what's going to happen is he's going to get the axe out eventually, and he is going to whack that broom into 1,000 little pieces. And he thinks it's okay, he goes back to sleep. Well, what happens then?
He's got 1,000.
1,000 different things to it. And at the end of the movie, what happens is, thank goodness, the wizard comes back, and the wizard then saves the day, and Mickey realizes is that you must have the power to go with the responsibility. I'm going to tie this into something, believe it or not. But we're going to talk a little bit about partnerships, teams, classes, and those of you, like myself, that have been in project management, this is probably not new to you, but we start off, we form a team. And then we go through a storming phase. We got to find out who's really got the power, who's going to be the alpha at the table, these types of things. And then finally we get into a normalization. Okay, we'll play odd even cards. Okay, no, upside down. Okay, that's fine. And then we start performing, right? And this is the same we do with our students. It's the same that happens with the board of directors and the ABTA or whatever it happens to be, right? We go through these phases. Okay, a little bit of marketing 101. We start off normally by doing a customer needs assessment. And then we do this arousal phase. Dale Carnegie, He wrote a book I'm sure some of you must have read maybe way, way back. I think it was started in like the 20s. How to Win Friends and Influence People. And he talks about arousing the want. And when we have our students, whether we're teaching them or trying to get new students, this is what we try to do, is we try to arouse the want. Then after that, once we start teaching, hopefully we use positive reinforcement. We don't do the critical thing. Reminds me of a story. I was, about a couple of years ago, I was sending emails back and forth with Larry Cohen, and he was preparing an article for Bridge World, and he was talking about the synergy of how you get teams, the form, storm, and so on. And Dave Berkowitz, who we all love, but back in those days, is that he could, when, you know, the old percussion slam thing, he kind of had one incident, too many with Larry, and Larry said, "That's it, David. I'll allow you to berate me once per session, more than that, and it's adios, muchachos." And Larry said that was it. He never, the whole time, he said he had dozens of them that he was owed, but he said the partnership worked really well. So this happens with teams, and it happens with our students, right? There are some times we can encroach on the goodwill, but we try not to. We try to keep it in good balance, and we take that thing with the authority and responsibility where we have a good partnership arrangement. How many of you remember the Barry Crane commandments? Oh man, if you were playing a team game, you did not bid 7 no trump. 6 no trump is it if you wanted to play on his teams. And if you were going to be one of the top players in his day, you did what Barry said. And he had his rules like, what was it? The jack is over the queen if it's the minor, and it's the, you know, and if you played on his team, that was the way you did it. How about you all? How do you do your balancing act? Any thoughts you have as far as things that you did do for positive and negative reinforcement, any of you? Okay, I've been nice so far. But I do have a squirt gun. I'll give out rewards for good questions.
Oh, take a reward.
Okay. Here, have a bridge hands pencil.
Oh, how wonderful.
Would you like a little cologne?
Oh,
there you go.
But I haven't even answered the question.
Oh, well, I pay off. Sharon, what's your question?
No, I'm answering yours.
Okay.
But I don't remember it.
Yes, Leslie.
I like to, whether students are always uneasy in class speaking up. So regardless of how stupid the question is, I always start off with, wow, that's a great question. Every time. We don't care how stupid it is. Mm-hmm. So we just like to give them encouragement right from the get-go, make them calm down.
Encourage is so important, yes. We'll talk about that a little bit more. That's perfect lead-in, though. It's just the, in fact, the one I like to use is that, well, that's a good question because I have an answer for that one. But whatever it is, we like good questions and there are no bad questions, right? Because so often it just shows that we haven't clearly formed the thinking, or we thought that they heard something, but they didn't. They maybe would learn it better visually, and so they didn't capture it because, you know, we can only process so much at a time, as we talked about earlier in the class. Okay, so we're going to talk about the beat. The beat. This is like the lowest measure in a play, which is where it's kind of a response. Oftentimes it can be physical, an activity. It can be something personal, but most of them are objective types of things in beats. And we, I'm sure, only use these 3. Make others feel good, find out something, or we want to convince something. We don't like to, hopefully, make people feel bad. But we see that at the table, don't we? When you're expressing these, you don't want it to be something like when you're acting, is to be where it's a mode such as, the partner saved my bacon. Instead, it would be more something like, you feel like a wounded gazelle in the Serengeti. And all of a sudden, my partner made a brilliant play and made me look good before my opponents. And so when we act, those are the things we do. So when you teach your classes, consider that sometimes it's not just where you just have a conditioned response, but you're reacting, and so we react with the classmates, right? We kind of do things where it's collectively. And that's the lowest part. of acting. Believe it or not, I will tie this into bridge. Okay, but we have another breakout session. And so next one we're going to do for 4 minutes is tell us about your dramatic storytelling successes, any good ideas that you might have learned here, but what efforts are required to make the change to get more emotional content. Yeah, I'm sure there's some good and bad things you have. And then maybe what are some of your favorite actors in movies. So take the next 4 minutes and proceed.